Blood Monsters and Fears, a horror monster movie podcast hosted by me, Craig Brosnan.
And me, Anastasia Castleberry.
And this shit was fucking wild.
Yeah, this movie's crazy.
Yes, so this week we're talking about Rosemary's Baby.
That's all I can say. The last time I'd seen this movie, I was probably about 14. And I know that it freaked me out then, but now that I am 24, it's been that fresh 10 years, I couldn't sleep all night after we watched this movie. I was up all night.
Didn't stick with me that hard, but it definitely wasn't what I was expecting. I was given like the like just the pitch that is about a lady who gives birth to the devil, and I was like, that sounds weird and interesting, and that definitely doesn't describe exactly how this movie goes. So
not even a little bit.
No, but
not even a little.
We just had some delicious Subway, so we're nice and full and relaxed now, ready to talk about a scary movie.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully I'm not quite as scared after I talk about it as I was the other night.
It is very scary. It's really cool because it's scary without showing anything, and I think that's the most interesting type of horror. It's like all psychological.
I love that. They've really lost that in modern horror, especially just modern film is like that. You don't have to see everything to be frightened or to experience something. I think it's what you don't see that affects you the most.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at least for me personally. And I wish that they did that more in film now. But I mean, you know, we gotta give it up to Hatsune Miku for filming this scary-ass movie.
Yes, Hatsune Miku is the creator of Minecraft. She wrote Harry Potter, and she also directed Rosemary's Baby. Very talented woman.
We love her. 10 out of 10.
She does everything.
Her in that leak.
I also just couldn't believe that this movie didn't get banned.
I know.
I'm surprised that something like this came out. Maybe it's one of those weird things where it's like the rating board didn't watch it till the end to see how fucked up it is towards the very end. I don't know. Because that used to be a problem with video games a lot when that rating system started. Like, Notoriously Earthbound was rated KA, and the end of that game is super creepy and fucked up and, like, adultish. And when they re-released it for the first time in 2014, I believe it was, for the Wii U, they re-changed the rating to teen, which is much more appropriate.
Yeah,
if you know anything about that game. It's all fun and games until, like, the last half an hour of the game. So, and not that this movie isn't weird or creepy up until then, but the ending is, like, a holy shit moment. At least it was to me, so.
Fair. And I think, this movie definitely touches a lot of really interesting things that, in a way, they were being talked about at this time, because this came out in 1968, and, I mean, post World War II, during the hippie New Age movement, and people, for the first time, being very anti-establishment, and trying to come into their own, and go against the grain, and the way that this, particularly in my opinion, the way that it approaches religion, and just the general paranoia of a human being when they're under crazy amounts of stress is very interesting, because they didn't make movies like that, especially not then. I feel like they really still don't. Not in the same way that this movie portrays them. Because for all of its paranormal elements, I feel like it's still very human. And it's, to me, I think it's more sad than it is anything else.
Yeah, it's pretty depressing.
It's a really depressing.
Poor Rosemary really didn't do anything wrong. She just got unlucky.
The world's out to get her.
It's
not all in her head, that's for sure.
But, jokes aside, the person that directed this movie, do you want to give the actual background on him?
His name is Roman Polanski, and just in no other layman's terms, he's human garbage. He's really famous for making this movie and having been married to Sharon Tate, who got murdered by Charles Manson and his Manson people. That was Roman Polanski's wife. He wasn't home when she got murdered, whatever. And then, God, I think it's 30 years ago now, he got caught after raping a 13, 14-year-old girl. And then he fled to, I don't remember if it's France or somewhere else, where they will not extradite him from. He is a pedophile if I ever saw one, and I would rather just pretend that he didn't make this movie.
And he's just living free in France now, isn't he?
Yeah, and
It's
I mean, there are
crazy.
people in Hollywood who've advocated for him to be brought back to the United States with no persecution, which just rubs me the wrong way.
Yeah.
Because
Like, I don't care how good of a movie you make.
No, your art is not an excuse to be garbage.
Yeah.
So, Hatsune Miku made this movie to me. I would rather not give him credit for this because, you know, his movie would be nothing without the people that were in it anyway.
That's true.
Shout out to our girl Mia Farrow.
Is that who plays Rosemary?
That's Rosemary.
Yeah, she was fucking excellent.
Yeah, she was fantastic.
It was ridiculous how real her performance felt.
I felt like I know her. Like every time I've seen this movie, when I see her, when like the way she walks around, the way she talks, the way she interacts with everyone else around her, I feel like I know her. Like she's just such a real person, and it's weird. It's really weird.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Was this the only movie that guy did too?
No, I know he's made other movies.
Was they all horror or no?
No, I don't think so. There aren't a ton of things that I know him from. It's really just this that personally that I know him from. Yeah.
Because this is based off of a
he
book.
did. Yes, it is. And I do know that he did make The Pianist with, what's his name? Adrian Brody, which is, again, a good movie, but I'm not going to give him, props for anything.
No, I get it. No, yeah, this is based off of a book. I don't know how much older the book is than the movie. Do you know?
Not. It's like they came out. They're being made about the same time. So when
really?
this book came out, it's pretty much immediately after they started adapting it into a screenplay.
And you haven't read the book, right?
No, but weirdly enough, Craig's mom has read it.
Yes, true. That was funny.
If you know Craig and you know Mrs. B, no.
Yeah, we told her that we were gonna watch this and talk about it, and she's like, oh, ooh, no, ooh, that's terrible, gross.
Yeah, no.
We're like, what? She's like, and we're like, did you see? She's like, no, I read the book. I didn't know it was supposed to be scary until I started reading it, and I was like, holy. So
I'm so sorry.
So
Lorraine.
I'm curious about, I mean, I'm assuming they're probably very similar.
Yeah, I can't,
But,
I've never seen anything or heard anyone say that they're further apart. I don't really know about the book. It's something I would probably be intrigued to read about, maybe halfway through.
It's interesting. I mean, I'm not a big reader for anyone that knows me, and for you guys to know I don't read a lot. I just get distracted. It's hard for me to focus on that kind of medium. But I feel like so much of this movie is visual, and I feel like it'd be hard to portray that in written word. So I kind of wonder how it translates in book form. I feel like that's interesting.
Especially because, I mean, obviously this movie is called Rosemary's Baby, so she's pregnant in at least parts of this movie. And in parts of it, she looks really ill.
And not pregnant.
No, and I feel like that would be really difficult to portray in written word. As someone who does love to read, I have a fairly expansive library of my own.
Yeah.
I love to read. I've read so many different kinds of books, and I feel like having the visual in this way and knowing that that's what's supposed to be happening to her, I don't know how you could portray them in the same way to give you that same picture in your mind.
Yeah.
But poor little Ro, I love her. She's a nice little lady, and it's so sad. So, what do you think? We're gonna get into this?
I think it's time to get into the plot.
Prepare yourselves, ladies and gents, and whatever else.
True. If, in all honesty, if you're listening to this and you're wondering if you should watch it or not, I feel like you don't need to see this movie.
No.
I'm happy I watched it because it's a unique experience, but this is the kind of movie where I don't think you ever want to see it more than once, because it's psychological scary, not in a way that stuck with me terribly, but I could see that would stick with people, and it's just really sad. I put it like in the category of not a horror movie, but The Fault in Our Stars.
Oh, yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, it's just so emotionally draining to get through that I don't know why you'd ever want to put yourself through that more than once. So even putting yourself through it at all, I don't think is necessary to understand the story.
No.
Like, like, when you listen to the summary that Anna's gonna give, you're gonna hear it, and you're gonna be like, wow, that sounds terribly sad. And I promise it's 10 times worse when you actually watch it. Like, this is almost just as much as just a sob sad film as it is a horror film. So.
I agree, mostly because, again, Mia Farrow's portrayal of this character is so real and so fleshed out and so human. And for most of this movie, if not all of this movie, pretty much, she is so alone that she has no one to turn to.
Oh yeah, she has way more screen time, like, by herself than anyone else with her or anything else.
I would say that is probably the thing that strikes me the most about this movie. I don't think that anyone should watch this if you don't think you can stomach it. If you are someone who is light of heart, don't watch this movie.
It's interesting, because I'm thinking about it now. I don't think there's a single scene in the movie that she's not in.
I don't think so, no.
I think she's literally in every single scene in the movie, which is kind of interesting, too.
Because that's not normal, I feel like, as far as a lot of movies go, is they don't usually have the star have all of the screen time. And I don't even think that she's necessarily, like, a screen hog, because
she's not because she's not literally on the screen the whole time, but literally there's not a scene without her there.
No, like, she's always somewhere. You always know she's there. They're always talking about her. It's just, but she's still so alone.
She's always there.
So this movie is set in 1965, and there's a guy named Guy Fieri, and Rosemary Woodhouse, and they've probably not been married that long. Whatever, newly cute married couple. She's very sweet, probably a little naive, that all-American girl, and he's definitely into himself, which I think is a big character point for him. Is he's way more cocky and confident in himself, I think, than she is. So they're in a lot of ways very good foils to each other, because she's more reserved, and you feel that immediately. And they have a fair amount of screen time together as well, so you'll see them together more. So it's 1965. They're married, probably not for that long, and they are renting this recently vacated apartment in a really old building in New York City. And it's huge and gothic and beautiful.
Yes, it was the world's largest apartment.
It's so big. And then they also described that this apartment is formerly the back part of another apartment that is right next door. Then to know that is bigger than any house I've ever personally lived in out in the West. Wow. So they're renting this super nice, huge apartment, and the only reason that they get it, especially for the deal that they get it for, is because the previous tenant was an old woman, and she fell into a coma, and she died. I would remember that she fell into a coma specifically. It'll be important later. They ignore the words of their really good friend, who's an older man who I think they previously were tenants for. His name is Hutch.
Yes.
Telling them that this place that they've moved into is fucked up, that a lot of really messed up things have happened, but they're like, no, it's good, it's fine. And he's like, but witchcraft, murder, Satanism. And they're like, no, it's a good deal. So, I mean...
Hutch is just a skeptic about the whole satanic panic kind of thing. Even though I think this was technically before the satanic panic, right?
Yeah.
When was that? Was that more...
Well, it's happened more than once, and it was definitely prevalent in the 60s, but that really only happened after Charles Manson murdered Sharon Tate. Yeah. So that hadn't happened yet.
There's also a weird thing in the apartment, too. There was a closet they found hidden behind a big old dresser taking up the whole closet.
And they were saying that it looked way too heavy for her to have moved it herself. And Rosemary's like, why would she move that there? Whatever, I guess it doesn't matter. She's gone. It's our home now.
Yeah, because they moved the dresser or whatever, and then they checked the closet.
And everything seems normal.
Yeah, it just seems like a regular old closet.
And so it's like, oh, maybe she was senile. Whatever, move on with their lives. And then she is down in the basement one day, and she meets someone who's probably about the same age as her. And she finds out she's a recovering drug addict that's living with Guy and Rosemary's elderly neighbors, Minnie and Roman Castevet.
Yeah, the house right behind them.
So
their apartment.
Yeah, they're quite a bit older than them. And so she's like, oh, they don't have any children, and I'm like the child they never had, and they're so good to me. And Rosemary's like, oh, that's so sweet. And then, like, the next day, she jumps off the she jumps out of the window of their apartment and kills herself.
Mm-hmm. And they show it.
Yeah, they do, which is probably the goriest part of the movie.
Oh yeah, it came as a surprise to me. It was pretty out of left field.
But before she does kill herself, when she meets Rosemary, she shows her this really beautiful good luck charm. And Rosemary's admiring it, and she loves it, but she's like, oh, God, it smells. What is that? And she's like, oh, it's something called tannis root. It's a good luck charm. And Rosemary's like, huh, all right. And then the next day she's dead, and she's like, what the fuck? We just moved in here. I just made this friend. This is some shit. So, it's just sad. It's really, really sad.
And when they're out there, this is when they meet, what's her name, Minnie and
Roman,
the first time they're walking home, I guess, from being somewhere. And they see all the cops around, and they're like, what? And then they see, what's her name, is dead on the ground. They're like, oh, well, that sucks. Like, they seem they seem weirdly nonchalant about it.
So nonchalant. And I feel like nobody really notices. I think Rosemary kind of takes it in stride because, she's young, and things definitely affect young people in a different way than they do older people, so she's probably just trying to shrug it off. But I thought it was weird, even the first time I saw this movie. I was that's not normal.
Yeah, it stuck out to me right away.
So then they don't have this girl living with them anymore, so they come over and invite Rosemary and Guy to come and have dinner with them. And they're like, oh, whatever, old people, that's fine. Not a bad deal, get some free food out of it. They go over, and Guy really hits it off with them. Mm-hmm. Rosemary doesn't hate them or anything. It's just that he's way more into his kind of relationship that's blossoming with them than she is. They kind of weird her out a little bit, but she doesn't think anything ill of them. And then, as a side note as well, Guy is an actor. And he's not like a movie actor or anything. He's
like
nothing
commercials
super fancy.
And stuff like that.
And they say like 4 different times exactly what he was in.
No, yeah.
I'm like, oh my god, it is trying to make him sound more important than he is. Alright, Guy.
And everyone's like, what the fuck are you? What?
And he
like, what is this stupid play you were in?
And at this dinner with Minnie and Roman, he had just told them that he was up for a part in a play that he probably wasn't going to get because they were giving it to someone who was more well known. But this play would make someone's career. Mm-hmm. It was important, and the role was great, and he was disappointed. And then the next day, they're hanging out, whatever, Guy's with his girl Ro, and he gets a phone call at the house, and found out that the original actor who was about to play this big part has just gone blind. Out of the blue. Mm-hmm. Completely blind.
Just woke up blind.
And he's like, well, shit, yeah, I'll take the role. Anything for money.
Well, he acts sadder than you're making it out to be. He's like, he's like glad he got it, but he says he's like, I wish it wasn't like this.
But I feel like it's kind of wishy-washy.
Well, I think you could tell he's faking it, but like Rosemary is like, he's sad.
No, it's so sad. Poor Rosemary. We cut to Guy and Rosemary having a super romantic candlelit dinner in their new, beautiful home. But she's redone everything in together. And they're like, oh, man, I really wish we had some dessert. And then Minnie from next door comes and knocks on the door, and she's like, I made some chocolate mousse, yeah. And then leaves.
Just like that.
And then they're like, oh, hell yeah, chocolate mousse. And then they're eating it, and Guy likes his. He's all into it. He's, like, eating it like there's no tomorrow. And then Rosemary's like, this tastes weird. The undertaste is weird. Mm-hmm. I'm like, oh, no. Oh, no. Oh, no.
Bitches get poisoned.
And then she's like, oh, Guy, mine just tastes weird, and I don't know. And he just starts tripping. In my opinion, this is kind of where I feel him slipping.
Yeah. Is
immediately his reaction to her being like, no, it tastes funny. Maybe yours is okay and mine isn't. And he just starts treating her like shit. Like, no, you're just being ridiculous. And, if you don't want to eat it, then, just throw it away.
It's
just
so
get
weird.
rid of it then. And it's like, why are you being such a dick to her about something you didn't even make? And so she's like, fine.
How dare you not eat Minnie's pudding, you bitch.
And so she's like, fine, God. And when he's not looking, she gets rid of the rest of it. She's probably had about 2 or 3 bites. Then she goes and she throws it away. She's cleaning up in the kitchen. And she starts feeling funny. And she starts kind of like fumbling around the house. And she's trying to go to bed. And Guy's like, oh shit. Like, oh no. And then she straight up just yeets herself onto the ground. Falls down. It's like, oh my God. And he just picks her up. And she's like, no, we need to. You just got this part. We have money. Oh no. Like, we should try to have a baby. And he's like, no, some other time. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. And she's like, okay, I'm just tired. And she passes out. And she starts having these really weird dreams with some really creepy imagery on a boat. And it's just all this really crazy shit starts happening. And after she has this weird boat thing where she's naked and all these other people are around her, she, like, flash forwards into being in their apartment. And she's on a bare mattress in their living room. And she's naked. And there are all these people around her that live in the complex with them, that live in this apartment building. And they're all in these weird robes and they're chanting shit around her. And she's like, wait, what's going on? Everything's fine. And it's just so bizarre because of the way that it's filmed. It's like the camera's spinning around the room. It kind of zooms in and out on her. They draw like some upside down pentagram on her, and then...
Yeah, it looks like it's out of blood, too.
Yes, it's really weird. And then she starts hallucinating this, like, the Pope and stuff, and then she sees someone that looks a lot like her husband Guy, like, get on her. And then it's about, like, maybe a few minutes into them sleeping together that she realizes he's changing, and he has claws, and he has skin that isn't human, and he has glowing red eyes, and she's freaking out, and she's like, she says, oh my god, this isn't a dream, this is actually happening.
Yeah, like it clicks.
And in that moment, that's what scares the shit out of me. Yes, I think it's absolutely horrific that she's being raped.
Yeah.
But I think it's also that she's almost lucid because she didn't eat all of it, and part of me is just like, Rosemary, I wish you'd eaten all of it. I wish you didn't have to know. And you see his eyes, and that will always freak me out as long as I live. I think it's the scariest thing is the way it looks, and she wakes up the next morning just covered in scratches. She's like, what the fuck happened? And then Guy's like, oh yeah, I had sex with you while you were asleep. You know, I didn't want us to miss out on making a baby. And she's like, what the fuck is wrong with you? So basically, she's been raped by... I mean, you know, in her dream, by something.
Yeah.
And then her husband admits to marital rape as well.
Yeah.
I'm like, this is just fucked up. Which is also something...
Yeah, because they were planning on, like, sleeping together that night anyway, because they were talking about wanting to have a baby.
And he's, like, totally gone back on what he was saying to her when she was falling asleep. Like, no, it's okay, another night. And then, in the morning, he's like, no, I fucked you while you were asleep. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yeah. So.
But beyond the point. So it moves pretty quickly after that. She's still kind of wigged out, but she's not dwelling on it as much. And she's like, oh shit, son, I'm pregnant. There's a baby. So she's stoked. And so she goes and tells her husband, and the first people that he wants to go and tell are his neighbors, Minnie and Roman, and then they insist that she go to this amazing doctor, Dr. Saperstein. No, this is not John Ralphio's father, played by Henry Winkler on Parks and Recreation.
It's not.
So she goes to this new doctor who's very well known, really good OBGYN. Whatever. He's good to her. He tells her to start getting these drinks, these vitamin drinks made by Minnie, who is growing these herbs and stuff in their house. And she's putting that tannis root that was in that girl's necklace, who by now also, she gave that dead girl's necklace to Rosemary.
Yeah, it didn't take long for her to move on.
No, it didn't. And she's putting that stuff and all this other stuff in these drinks that have been prescribed by this doctor because they're such good friends. I personally wouldn't drink it, but whatever makes you feel good, Rosemary. And it's about this time, for the first, 3 to 4 months of her pregnancy, that she's in horrible pain. And you see her get so skinny, and she looks like a corpse.
Yeah.
Like, she looks
always
terrible.
looks sweaty and tired and darkened eyes.
It's so scary. And so she's just in this terrible pain. She looks like shit. The doctor keeps telling her, oh, it's just your joints. You'll be fine. This is normal. She's like, okay. And then their good friend Hutch, who they used to rent from, comes by one day to see her, and he's like, what the fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, he just straight up says, he's like, you look terrible. And she's like, what?
She's like...
He's like, this isn't normal. Like, he's the only one that
I know, because
says
Guy doesn't say anything, Minnie and Roman don't say anything, the doctor doesn't say anything, so she thinks everything's fine. But Hutch is like, you're supposed to gain weight when you're pregnant, don't lose it. You look like a corpse, essentially, is what he tells her. And he's wigged out just being in this building, and I think that the guy who plays him shows that really, really well, because you can see that he's uncomfortable being in this home. And he's trying to tell her, like, something's not right. And then Roman comes over, and he meets him, and he just knows something isn't right. And he's like, I care about you. You're not going to listen to me anyway until I have some proof. She's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Because she's very young and very pregnant and not feeling good at all, and no one is really helping her, doing anything to help her. So he's like, meet me here at this place tomorrow. I have something to give you. We need to talk. This is important. And she's like, okay. Guy finds out about this. He's there when she makes this appointment to meet up with Hutch. He doesn't like it. He's like, what does he know? You know, like, you look fine. You know, if the doctor says you're okay, if Minnie and Roman say you're okay, everything's fine. And it's like, they're not your parents.
Yeah.
They're, like, nothing to you but your neighbors. So his insistence on being around them and his, you know, motivation for his career to be on the forefront is very fishy, because he doesn't spend next to any time with her. She's not feeling good. He's out there watching TV, or he's working, or he's with the cast of vets. He's never with her.
Yeah. And I don't know if we even said cast of vets are the last names of Minnie and Roman.
Minnie and Roman. So she's supposed to meet Hutch, and so she goes out and she looks like shit, and she's waiting for him. And she goes and calls him. She has to go find a payphone, and she goes and calls his house, and some lady answers. And she's like, hi, who's this? And she's like, hi, this is Rosemary. I'm looking for Hutch. And she's like, oh, God, he just fell into a coma. That's right, ladies and gents. A coma.
Coma number 2 in this movie.
So he's in a coma, and he's not doing well. She's freaking out. She's like, oh my god. And then she just happens to see Minnie when she's out on the street, who takes her home, keeps trying to give her these drinks, and she's like, no one is helping me. I look like shit. I feel like shit. I'm so worried about this baby. I'm gonna go see our original doctor, Dr. Hill, who I don't even know if we had seen him before. We'd heard him, but we hadn't seen him. Because immediately after, when she became pregnant, she started seeing Dr. Saperstein. So she's like, I can't do this. He's not helping me. I'm going to go see Dr. Hill. And Guy gets pissed. He tries to play it like, well, you're going to offend Dr. Saperstein. And, you know, the only reason we're getting to see him, and we're seeing him for such good rates, is because of, you know, Minnie and Roman. She's like, I don't give a shit. I don't feel good. I don't think that this is going well for this baby. And they're arguing, and then she just suddenly doesn't feel so awful anymore.
Yeah, she magically says the pain is gone.
Yes, and sees the, she feels the baby moving for the first time. So this is the first time since she's been pregnant that she doesn't feel fucking horrible.
And that's what, like 4 months in?
Yes. And this is also something to note, that you can hear between the walls from their apartment to Minnie and Roman's apartment. It shows that a lot. That you can always hear Minnie and Roman yelling at each other, so there's no way that they're not hearing it on the other side. Just a little side. A few months have passed, and Rosemary gets a call from a friend of Hutch's, who lets her know that Hutch is dead, and she is fucked up, and she's like, oh my god, I can't believe this, like, this should never have happened. And so she goes to the funeral, she just misses it, but then she meets this friend. And this friend is like, well, right before he died, he had woken up from his coma and told his friend that Rosemary needed to have this book. That's all wrapped up in some paper. And gives her the cryptic message that the name is an anagram. And it's weird because she'd already been suspecting that things were not normal. Because, like, I'm not saying she has, like, a sixth sense or anything. But she definitely knows better.
Yeah.
That the way that everyone around her is acting isn't normal. So she goes home. She's tripped out. She's like, I miss Hutch. She was so nice to me. Unwraps this gift, and it's a book about witchcraft. Big taboo in this time. It's a tough time.
Yeah.
And she starts reading it, and she starts rearranging, like, the name of the book with her Scrabble set. She's like, oh, God, he must have lost his fucking mind, whatever. And she's like, here's the name of this person who'd lived in this hotel, who was known to be a witch about 60 years before. And they say that they, like, ate children, that they murdered people, all this crazy shit. And then there's a photo in this book of this man who lived in this building where they're at, and his son named Stephen Mercado. And she's like, wait. And so she rearranges Stephen Mercado, and it is an anagram for Roman Castevet. Mind you, these people are reputed Satanists, which is, I mean, it doesn't help that she's pregnant. It really doesn't, because I feel like she's already, like, susceptible to not just her emotions, but other people's emotions and all this other crazy shit. And she's like, wait, what? And so she starts reading through this book and reading everything, and she suspects that the Castevets and Dr. Saperstein or actually not Dr. Saperstein yet. She thinks that he's Stephen Ricardo, and that he's part of this crazy-ass satanic coven that want her baby. So she goes to the doctor, and she's like, Saperstein, yo, all this crazy stuff is happening. And he's like, oh, no, I mean, yeah, but no, like, we'll figure it out, don't worry, I'll help you out. And then it isn't that much later that she realizes that he wears that same smell, that same scent, that gross-ass Tannis root smell that she does. And she's like, oh, shit. So she realizes that he must be in with them if he's also wearing this nasty-ass Tannis root. So she's stopped drinking these drinks from Minnie. Minnie doesn't really know that. She's been, like, hiding it, and then she just outright is like, Guy, I'm not gonna drink this anymore. You can't make me. These people are evil. They have bad intentions for me and for the baby. And, of course, he doesn't take her seriously. He doesn't care. He takes his book from her and puts it high up because she's a little gal. And he's like, you need to calm down. And tells her that she's crazy, that she's just pregnant. And you can tell how much it hurts her because she already feels so alone and so isolated from him, because he's isolated himself. Like, he only spends his free time with his neighbors, and it's weird. And she knows that. And it makes me feel so bad because she's such a nice girl.
She does nothing wrong.
No, she is the innocent lamb here. She really is. So she is freaked out that her doctor is an evil, scary man. She is beginning to realize that her husband must be in this somehow, to some degree, because he won't listen to anything she has to say and is adamant that their neighbors are only going to be good for them. So she foolishly just runs to her old doctor, and she is telling him all this crazy shit, that these people are Satanists, that they're out to get her, that, you know, now she's going to be safe because he believes her, and he doesn't believe her. And so he just thinks she's being delusional and going through, like, psychosis from being pregnant, and then calls Dr. Saperstein and her husband, who she's trying so hard to escape, so hard to get away from them. And it's so sad because there's this scene where they're in a taxi together, and she's stuck in between the middle of them, and she looks terrible. Like, she's about ready to pop. Like, this thing's about to come out. And she's like, this is my baby, I have to protect him. Like, I love my child. This is all I've ever wanted. I'm not going to let anyone take him from me. And so she runs through the apartment complex and jumps out of a half-open elevator and goes into the house and locks the door and makes a phone call to a friend like, I need help. And then you see people lurking in the background after the door was locked. They shouldn't have had a way to get in, but they did. And up until this point, everyone is denying. Deny. They're not Satanists, they're not evil, none of this stuff is happening. And they all show up, and the doctor's like, I'm just going to sedate you, it's fine. And it's not just the doctor and Guy, it's them, and Roman and Minnie, and every other person who lives in this apartment building are all suddenly in their house. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? And she's freaking out. They're tying her down into the bed, and she goes into labor. And it's terrible. It's so terrible. Because she's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I need to protect my child.
Mm-hmm.
And then they knock her out. And then she gives birth to this baby that she never gets to see. She never gets to hold. And when she wakes up, they're like, oh no, the baby died. It was really casual. Like, I think the thing also that sucks is it shows Guy not being bothered at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, the baby died. It's fine. We'll have another. Like, what? What?
Yeah.
Like, that's not normal even a little bit. And
Mm-hmm.
she's like...
Yeah, like, no remorse.
No, and she's like, what is going on? And actually, right before all this had happened, before she'd run to her doctor, she'd called that actor that went blind.
Oh, yeah.
And she was like, hey... I just want to know if anything has improved. And he's like, oh, no. And she has suspicions that Guy has been in with them and that their scary witch rituals have been giving him what he wants. And she just read in this book that to make some of this stuff happen, you have to have a personal item from the person that you're trying to hurt. And she's like, oh, don't you? She's fishing. Right here she's fishing because she could be completely wrong. And I think that's what she wants to hear is that, look, no, you're crazy. But she'd asked him if, her husband had taken something from him, and he's like, oh, you mean when we switched ties?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that definitely solidified for her that he did not have her and that baby's best interest at heart, and now seeing that she'd been drugged up, that all this stuff had happened, that he let these people touch her, do this to her, and that, oh, now the baby's just dead. She is so disconnected from him.
Yeah.
And it's terrible, terrible. And so she's in this house, and they keep her confined to the bed. And it's all these people from the apartment complex going in and out, talking to her like they know her, trying to keep her drugged up. And so she starts hiding the drugs. She starts hiding the pills that they give her. And they think that she's just going to be passed out, all this whatever, and it's not working, and they don't know that. And they're asking her to just, like, pump her breast milk so they can get rid of it, just because, it doesn't need to be there. It'll only make it worse for her to be able to deal with this. But they won't get rid of the milk. They're keeping it. And all the while, like, she very faintly hears the cry of a baby.
Mm-hmm.
And they try to tell her that there's a new couple that's moved into the house, into the apartment complex with the baby, and she's like, okay. And they think that she's out like a light, and she's like, no, I know. She knew that something wasn't right. So she has a feeling at that point that, that door was locked, and there's no way they could have gotten in. How did they get into my house? That old woman put that dresser in front of that door. I wonder why. So she goes in, and she takes down all the shelves, and then she just peeks through and sees that is a fucking door into where Minnie and Roman live. So not only have they been able to hear everything all this time, but they've been able to come in and out and do God knows what. And she's realized here that dream that she thought she had wasn't a dream. And I think she kind of already had an inkling, but knowing now, seeing the door, I think solidifies that for her. So she just goes and straight up grabs a knife. And she just kind of walks real calmly into the house, like, with the knife in her hand. And, I mean, part of me is like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? Yeah. Like, this is not how you should have gone about this. She could have set that whole bitch on fire. And she didn't, but I get it. Like, she's definitely in postpartum. Yeah. She's not feeling good. Her pregnancy was shit. Everyone
part of her, I think, just doesn't care anymore either.
Like, what does she have to lose?
Like, she just wants an answer at that point.
She has nothing else to be taken from her. They've already taken her baby.
Yeah,
They've taken her sanity. Like, she has nothing left.
Yeah.
And so, she goes into the house, she has the big knife, and she sees them having a party. And it's her husband, and Minnie and Roman, and every other bitch who lives in this apartment building. And she's like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And then sees a beautiful bassinet that's completely clothed in black.
Yep, with an upside-down cross hanging above it.
Inverted cross. And she's like, what the fuck did you do to my baby? Give me my baby. And they're like, no. And then Roman's like, no, yeah, let her see the baby. And she goes over and she kind of moves the stuff away, like the stuff away from the baby's face. Yeah. And she, again, you don't see what the baby looks like, but you see the look on her face when she looks at him. And she is fucking horrified, falls back from him and is like, what did you do to my baby? What did you do to his eyes? And then Roman's like, he has his father's eyes. And she's like, what the fuck are you talking about? Guy's totally normal. And they just, at this point, completely are honest. And they're like, Guy isn't his father, Satan's his father. This is Adrian. Hail Adrian. And it's like, what the fuck?
Oh my God, yes.
And in this moment, like, she knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Like, there's no way that she didn't know, but I feel like it's not the same. It's it all playing out in front of you. And it's so fucked up, and she's like, what the fuck is going on?
Okay.
So
they all just start chanting Hail Satan.
And so she's like sitting, and she's like, oh my God, and they're stop with your, oh God, God is dead. And she's like, what the fuck is going on? This is supposed to be a normal house. And then Guy comes to try and talk to her, like, look at all the success we've had, look at everything they've done for us, this will pay off, you don't have to worry about it. And so she spits in his face.
Yeah, and he says again, well, we could have another baby.
Like, no, because you didn't have this baby with her. You let the devil rape her. And it's just, oh man.
It's very, very disturbing how real the Hail Satan, Hail Adrian chants are done by everybody.
It's no good, dude.
It's so cultish and real feeling.
Yes, it is. And so she sees this mean old fat bitch who lives. I'm sorry. She's a mean old fat bitch, Laura, whatever. And she sees her, like, really heavily rocking the bassinet. And she's like, you're rocking him too fast. And this woman is just nasty as hell to her.
Yeah.
Like, you're disgusting. Like, fuck what you have to say. And then Roman's like, shut the fuck up and let her rock her own baby. And she literally, like, sticks her tongue out at Rosemary.
It's so
I think
funny.
it was so funny. And she goes, and she's definitely, like, mothering him in that moment. And it's so weird because she knows that that's the Antichrist.
Mm-hmm.
But she feels compelled to love him because that's the child that she carried and went through all this to have. And then it just...
Yeah, she's rocking him, and it shows her looking at him, and then it just ends.
And it's weird.
It's wild.
It's really weird.
I love how ambiguous the ending is.
Because you don't know if she's going to kill herself, if she's going to try to kill that baby, if they're going to kill her, if she's going to join them. If, you know, there's a whole lot of ifs here, and nothing definite, no finite ending, in my opinion. Which is, I like it, but it also scares the shit out of me.
Yeah.
I don't want to say that I'm necessarily, like, the biggest wuss in the world, but I'm definitely like a little kid where when something freaks me out, I can't sleep at night when I think about it. And this got me.
And the psychological shit always sticks with you a lot longer than the jump scares or whatever silly stuff like that.
Absolutely.
So,
and God, I feel so bad for Lil Ro.
she did nothing wrong.
Oh,
Rosemary did nothing wrong.
And I mean...
She just wanted to have a nice life with her hubby Guy.
And he just was like, no, I need money and fame.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go to any lengths to get that. And they just so happened to move into this place. And part of me is like, did they just happen to move there? Or did he...
Or was that planned even more preemptively?
Did he know that? And it's so sad that the only person who knew, who would have believed her, went out of his way to try to help her, and it cost him his life.
Yeah. And makes you wonder, too, the person that lived there before them that went into a coma and died, like...
It must have been set up by them.
Exactly, but it's like, you wonder what she did wrong, or...
I know.
Or like...
she knew too much?
Or did that druggie they took in, did they curse her so that she would kill herself because they didn't think she was suitable to have the baby?
Maybe.
Like, was she the original plan?
Right.
Who knows?
I mean, which is what I'm assuming, is like, that maybe she wasn't good enough.
Well, yeah, because that was another thing, too, forgot to mention, when they're talking about it, when she first, like, sees the baby, and they're like, Hail Satan, like, they say, like, you should feel lucky, you were chosen by him, of all the girls in the world.
Yes, and it's like, what the fuck? And it's definitely, like, it has a lot to say on, I wouldn't say necessarily Christianity as a whole, I would say specifically Catholicism, because they talk about the Pope. They show someone dressed up like the Pope. They show a nun. They talk about how Rosemary was raised as a Catholic. And I mean, I don't have experience in that. I was raised a Greek Orthodox person, but they're very similar. And knowing all that I do know about, like, the mythos of the Bible and Catholic tradition and all that she was chosen, is the nerve that they have to say that, like, what, equating her to Mary?
Yeah.
And this baby to Jesus?
Yeah.
Like, what?
Ugh.
It's fucked up.
This
movie's so fucked up.
On a lighter note, do you have any fun facts for us?
I have a few. So...
Of course.
at this time in the 50s and 60s, there was a prolific horror film director and producer named William Castle, who helped produce on this movie and helped write in on the script, but he was supposed to make this movie. It was supposed to be him. He made, like, House on Haunted Hill and The Tingler, and they're not, like, amazing movies per se, but they definitely hold up. Like, Vincent Price was his man's to go to.
You love House on Haunted Hill.
I love that movie. That's one of my favorite movies. And, to know that he was supposed to make this movie, it would have been a very different movie.
Oh, I'm sure. I feel like this kind of movie, the vibe and direction it goes in is very heavily dependent on who directs it.
I agree. Shout out to Hatsune Miku. And also, there's a scene in this movie where when Rosemary's super, super pregnant, and she's tripping, and she's like, oh my god, I need help, and so she's like, walking through traffic. That was real. That was real New York traffic that she just walked into. They couldn't stage that. You cannot get New York drivers to stop for anything. And she was scared, and so she asked the director, like, I don't know if I want to do this. And he said, no, he's going to hit a pregnant woman. And nobody else on the production team would film it, so the director had to follow her out himself into traffic. And it's actually a really interesting shot, but to know that, oh god, that scares the shit out of me, because they're moving quick. Like, these cars are going right by, and she looks as scared as she feels, and it translates really well.
Yeah, it's weird to know that's not acting.
I know, it's really, really, really interesting. I do also know that for the supporting cast, like for Minnie and Roman, and for her husband and all of this, all the people in the background, he didn't have anybody particularly in mind, but he had made sketches of what he wanted these people to look like so they could fit this particular vision that he had. And then he just kind of picked people off out of like, ooh, this person looks like this person. We should get them, we should get them, we should get them.
Interesting. Were any of these people prolific actors before this, really, or no?
Mia Farrow wasn't super famous yet. This really made her famous. The guy who plays Guy is actually John Cassavetes, who's prolific independent filmmaker.
Oh, interesting.
He's made a lot of really, really famous movies and really good movies. A Fellow Greek, shout out. I do also know that he was not the first choice for that role. He wanted, I don't know that you know who it is, but
probably not.
No, Robert Redford. He wanted to play him, and I'm just like, when I think about it, for me, knowing him very well from all these other movies I've seen him in, I'm like, ew, no. He also wanted Jack Nicholson. And I'm like, oh, that would have been fucking gross. Like, because all I can picture is a movie Craig's never seen, is him in The Shining, screaming. That's all I picture. And I just can't see it. No. And also, she wasn't supposed to be Rosemary. He was trying to get his own wife to play her.
Oh, interesting.
And it didn't work out. I'm like, oh, weird. And he didn't like the way she looked. That she just, like, she was too little and skinny, that she didn't have, like, the kind of aura he wanted. But I feel like if it had been anybody else, it wouldn't have been right. It would have been really different. Like, just such a different movie.
Yeah.
I do also know that at the time that this movie was getting made, she was married to Frank Sinatra, who you do know.
Oh, yes.
So they were married.
Interesting. How weird.
They hadn't been married that long. And he had read the script when she was given it, and he was like, it's a good movie, but I don't think you'll be good in it. He was an ass. Frank Sinatra was definitely a chauvinist. And then he started making a movie of his own at the same time, and he was like, well, you need to be in my movie. And she's like, okay, I'm going to try to do both. And she couldn't. And so he gave her the ultimatum of, it's me or that movie. And she's like, this is going to make my career. I need to make this choice. And she chose to make the movie. And so while they were on the set filming this, he served her divorce papers.
That's wild.
On the set. Everyone was there.
That's crazy.
Everyone saw her get served, dude. And right after she's crying, she signs these papers, goes right back to filming like nothing happened. Like, how? I felt so bad. I felt so bad.
That's so bizarre.
He's such a dick. I mean, did he have a great singing voice? Yeah, but he was an ass to her. And this is also, you know, since it is spooky season, Halloween is approaching us very quickly. William Castle and a lot of other people have vocally said that they thought that the set of this movie was cursed. That watching this movie was cursed. That making this, had, condemned them in a way to all this terrible luck. Like, I know that he actually got really sick with gallstones, which are known to kill people if they don't get treated right. That he had to go and get surgery to take him out. That the person who composed this movie, all the music, fell into a coma and died. Kind of poignant, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And then, of course, within a year of this movie coming out, Sharon Tate got murdered at Roman Polanski's house when he wasn't there. Her and all her friends that were over.
That is...
So, and I mean, it's definitely well known as that. Like, a lot of people have also said that the Superman movies are cursed because, not the new ones, but the ones that are made in the 70s because, I don't know, I can't think of his last name, Christopher...
Nolan.
No, baby. I can't remember his last name. I feel so bad. He was Superman for several films, and then he was in a horrible horse riding accident, and he ended up being completely paralyzed from his neck down.
Wow.
They say that about Poltergeist, movie Craig's never seen. A lot of people who made that movie are dead. The little girl who was the star of that movie ended up dying, right after she made the third one.
Wow.
A lot of crazy, crazy things happened after this movie was made.
Yeah, that's weird.
So, there was a lot of that floating around at the time, and it's definitely stayed in the pop culture. I would think of.
Is that set been used on all those?
No, I think there's some of them have probably been used, but I know that they filmed this, if I'm not mistaken, on location. They didn't. So the front of that building as well is a real apartment complex that's super fancy and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So they use that for the exterior shots, but none of that inside that you see in the movie is inside that building. Because they went in and they're like, nah, it's not gross and scary enough. We're going to leave. So I think that they did use some building, but they also built sets, of course, as they always do.
No, yeah.
Which is interesting because I feel like the outside of that building matches the inside of this movie. So I can't imagine what the inside of it looks like. I don't want to know then. The magic of that would be ruined for me. Yeah, this movie's just... This is crazy. This movie's a trip.
Yeah, it's something else. Final thoughts, wow, basically.
Yeah.
I'm glad I watched it, but it's definitely not for everybody, and I don't think it's for... I wouldn't say this one's required viewing, because I feel like it can make you uncomfortable.
Really uncomfortable. I think if you're not...
But I like movies that kind of test you, if that makes sense.
I agree. No, I like things that make you think. That...
And I just appreciate things that are one of a kind. Like, this is something that's like nothing else, and I just always like that. Like, I'm weird, Anna knows this about me. Whether it comes to video games, music, movies, I don't even usually like stuff that's good. I like stuff that's different.
It's true.
Just because I appreciate the unique more than the perfect, I guess is the best way to put it.
And I think this definitely fits that because this isn't something that could ever be made again. This cannot be duplicated.
No.
The way this movie feels is due to every single specific person that was involved with it.
Kind of funny, though, because you say it can't be done again, and they did remake it.
Yeah, I know, which is, ugh.
I'm curious about that. I feel like
it's with Zoe Saldana, with, what is her, the green lady in Guardians of the Galaxy.
The green lady.
I cannot, Gamora.
Yes.
Thank you. She plays Rosemary, and I'm like, listen, hun, I love you, but no.
Yeah, that just doesn't seem right.
There are sequels to this movie, quote unquote.
That's weird.
And I think it's wrong.
That shouldn't be a thing. This is definitely a one-off.
That it doesn't.
Or it should be.
It cannot be redone. It cannot be captured again. It's not going to call it something different.
Mm-hmm.
Give her a different name.
Yeah.
Because you cannot do what's already been done.
Yeah.
And not that I necessarily think it's a great film or that it's like the greatest film. It's just something completely unique to itself. It still scares me. I'm 24 years old. Again, I don't know if it's necessarily something to disclose, but I don't find myself to be, particularly religious. This is a kind of movie that if you are religious, don't watch this movie.
Yeah, maybe stay away.
And that's not just, exclusive to Christianity. Maybe just don't watch it. If you're a superstitious person, don't watch this movie.
So if you're Anna, don't watch this movie.
If you're my mother, don't watch this movie. Oh my god.
But yeah, that was Rosemary's Baby, 1968, directed by Hatsune Miku. And next week, it's a big boy. It's a real big boy. It's Halloween.
Oh god, that's next week?
Well, so the way that we recorded, the way it's timed out, it'll premiere the
you're
Wednesday
right.
before Halloween.
Oh my god.
So it's time for us to do...
Wait, I think I just did the wrong
You did.
song.
You're thinking of...
Maybe you guys will get a bonus clip of me twerking to the trap remix of
Maybe.
that.
No, it should be the Buckethead cover.
What?
I played you that. Remember Buckethead, the guitarist?
You're right, no.
And he's like playing both parts on the guitar at the same time, and he's just dope as hell. Because shout out to Buckethead,
right.
the world's greatest guitarist.
Love Buckethead. But you're right, no, this is big. It's so on time, and I'm so excited.
I know,
Halloween
it's
is
very
my
fun.
favorite holiday, and this movie is worth seeing. Shout out to Jamie Lee Curtis.
I'm very excited to watch this for the first time, especially with how iconic this one is.
It's great. I'm so excited.
It's going to be a big boy. So we didn't have any write-ins this week. That's okay. But next week, if anyone wants to write in to bloodmonstersandfears@gmail.com to your thoughts on Halloween, or you could tweet us at our Twitter, BM&F Podcast. And we also have an Instagram now.
Which is Blood, Monsters, and Fears.
Yeah.
Come out. See us. Like my photos. There's not a ton on there yet, but there will be. Maybe just some photos of my spooky cat as well.
That's true.
He has a place here now.
We also have, we haven't posted any yet, but we have a bunch of pictures that I took of Anna when we went to a monster museum near our town, so that was pretty fun.
Yeah,
so we'll
back
probably
in
start
June,
posting those soon.
so,
I think
yeah.
you have one with good old Mike.
I think
Michael
I do
Myers.
as well, yeah.
So I'll have to post that one. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed listening. If you enjoyed it, share with your friends, and we'll catch y'all next week. Have a good one.
Bye.